Hello YouTube, and today we're going to do a little how-to on ramp coping. Mini ramp, any ramp with transition like this, a tranny ramp. Transition means that the slope of the ramp changes, it has a curve to it. But one thing that a lot of people have is like, well, how do you get the coping in there? This is the coping. It's really key to your ramp. Quarter pipe, mini ramp, whatever. You got to have coping, and it's got to be right. Okay, so the first thing is, where do you buy the coping, and what kind of coping do you buy? This that you're looking at is not really what you can buy, what you should buy. But you want to go to like a place where they do welding or metal work or something and ask that guy, because it's hard to, you're not going to find this at like Lowe's, especially in much of a length. You know what I mean? Because the people that make the metal and sell the metal, typically they don't want to sell it retail because there's not that many people that can work with it, and so they just sell it to like a welding shop or somebody, places that have like an open account, you know, and they just constantly are always ordering more. Normally what you want to buy is what's called 2-inch black pipe, which is this stuff. It's a 2 inches internal diameter. You can't see it from that side, but it's really pipe, and the internal diameter is 2 inches, and that's gonna 2 inches there to there, but what's relevant to you in building and doing the coping is really the distance, the external diameter. So it would depend on the wall thickness, you know. But what we're going to do today is talk about how to set it. Okay, so first of all, it's screwed down with regular, you know, basically 3-inch or 2.5-inch wood screws to what's under there, and we'll talk about what's under there in a minute. But you're going to drill a hole in it, and that won't hit your truck or anything. Don't worry about that. I know sometimes people worry about it, but don't, okay? It's not an issue. You put it right here, right where your truck goes, and you'll never feel it. As long as the diameter of this hole, the distance from side to side, is 3/8 of an inch. And that's big enough so that the head of the screw, which will be like one of these type screws, normal drywall screw or, you know, wood screw, is going to be 3/8 of an inch. And then there's another hole down inside there that's not big enough for the head to go through, but it's big enough for the actual screw to go through. So I mean, that's basic. What I really want to cover in this video is what's called the coping reveal. And this is really important. I've built multiple ramps, and this is key to the success of your ramp. But the coping needs to stick proud of this surface, and it needs to stick, also importantly, proud of the deck. From this angle, it doesn't look like this one sticks proud of the deck, because it doesn't on the end right here. It got off towards the end, but it does. Maybe you can see it. This coping came out really consistently across here. I was really happy, and that's key. That your grind tricks and what you're trying to do on your ramp is not going to work if it doesn't, you know, if it's not super straight and super consistent. So, typically, you want it to reveal about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch would probably be standard. This ramp has an 1/8 inch reveal. So that line of where the coping sticks out is hypercritical to the funness and the quality of your ramp. Okay? Now, how I set it in there, I borrowed from videos. It's manual labor. Look it up on Ride Channel from Jonah Owings. He did it. I gotta walk around this way. Here's a little mock-up that'll kind of show you this extension I'm working on. So, let me grab this. Okay, so yeah, the extension. I'll kind of show you a little mock-up. You're gonna come up with like a last 2x4 that's right at the top, okay? And then what you're gonna do is the coping is gonna sit on top of that. Normally what you want is like another 2x4 right up under it, like you can't see that. Let me get the light on. There we go. Like a double 2x4. This little extension thing just has one. But if we look under here at the actual ramp, I've got the two 2x4s right up in there. Okay. And then you don't want the of course you got your base layer or base layers of plywood, and then your final layer of whatever you're skating. You want them to be perfectly like level with this, so you're probably going to screw them down and then have to come back and like with your saw and trim it flush so that there's a perfectly level rolling edge. Because this is what Jonah's showing in his video. When you roll the coping out, you see it can like kind of rock up, and that will throw off your reveal with the deck that's going to come on here. But you've got to roll the coping out so that it protrudes from the skate light or whatever surface you're going to be skating on. It's got to protrude from it. So I mean, when I do that, I do it the way he did it. I just roll it out. You got this flat. This isn't flat yet, but you just roll it out to whatever looks good to the eye, and then you're going to screw down like some kind of cleat, like just a strip of plywood or something back here that won't allow it to move, and then it can't move back and forth. So the plywood cleat goes in, holding it out with the reveal just enough. All right, and the cleats is important because it has to have a very specific thickness. All right, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But you roll this out, and where it looks good, screw the cleat down. And you don't have to have one long cleat. You can have like multiple small ones, as long as there's plenty of support for everything that has to happen. And once you've got that, you've got like a notch, and you can screw down into the notch. Now when you screw the coping down, you can't use like your regular Phillips head bit that you might have built the rest of the ramp with. You're gonna have to have, because they have like that magnetic thing with the little tip in it, that's not gonna go through the 3/8 hole. So you're gonna have to have a bit that's more like a screwdriver. It's just this one long solid drill bit, and that'll go in there and find that screw. And taking them back out can be a pain to find the screw. See if I can find it. There we go. We found the screw. There in the ramp. And there's one hole I put in totally super wrong. Yeah. Now, what you're going to do is look at that diameter of that pipe and decide, well, how much do I want it to protrude from the top of the deck? This being the deck. How much does it stick out from here? Because it has to stick out, or you're not going to be locking in to your grinds and stuff. It's got to stick out. So on ours, we decided for a really mellow, 1/8 inch reveal. I wouldn't go any smaller than that. That's the absolute smallest I would ever go. And it's hard to get away with a 1/8 inch reveal because there's an issue with building the ramps. Like if the structure that the whole thing is supported on goes up and down as you travel across the ramp, then you've got major problems. Like how are you going to maintain a 1/8 inch, that's thinner than this, 1/8 inch protrusion from here? How can you possibly maintain that if you have deviation in the substructure, in the frame? If the framing that everything's built on deviates like a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch or maybe more, then how do you maintain an 1/8 inch reveal on the coping? Okay, that's important. We'll talk about how to solve that problem, but before we do that, let's talk about what you have to do. Is say, okay, I know how big this pipe is, this tubing, from external diameter to external diameter. I know what it's sitting on, okay? And actually what you want to do is you take the base layers and cut the base layers of plywood, get cut level with that 2x4 that's in the actual frame, okay? And then the skate light comes in after the fact. So the coping's set. It's set so that it will protrude from the skate light, but then you put the coping in, and then you're going to push the skate light up to the coping, if that makes sense. Okay, so here's your plywood cleat that I put in. Can you see that? Plywood cleat went in on top of that top board that the coping and everything's sitting on. Okay, and then it got screwed down when it was pushed forward far enough, and that made that notch to screw the coping down to. the thickness of the plywood cleat is essential. You got to think, well, how thick is my top layer of my deck going to be? That thickness plus the cleat thickness. All right, and then you subtract that total thickness away from the total diameter of this. That's your reveal. So I have 2 3/4 inches of plywood, and they leave me with a 1/8 inch reveal. Voila. Okay. So to put the actual deck on, the back of this is called the template, which is the curved plywood that all the studs that run, stud, 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 stud. There's a curved plywood template cut. Okay, and it stops right here. You know, you've got there's a board right here, and then there's a board right here, and then you just putting in a leg right there. We got leg. Can't see that. There's a leg going down. Okay. So what you can do is you just come in and build like a box of 2x4 with studs, boom, 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 boom. Okay, this is the way Jonah did it on his video, and like you're gonna screw it in to this board that's right behind here, and you're gonna screw it in so that the height of this frame is even with the top of the cleat that you put in, and then you can just slap down this. And it's going to just run across the frame you put in and then run straight on top of that cleat. Okay, and then you've got your 1/8 inch reveal. Now the only problem, and this is my personal solution, and this is what I did, this is my little addition to the thing, is I built more than one ramp. I built, I guess, a lot of ramps, I don't know, over the years. And what can happen is, the last ramp I built, well, not the last one, but one of the ones I built, it was 20 feet wide. This one's 16 feet wide. It has 4-4-foot sections. And the other one I'm talking about, it had 5 sections of 4 feet, so it's 20 feet wide. And what can happen is, you might think, like I thought, and you think, okay, I'm just going to cut plywood curve template. I'm just going to make 3 of them here, and in the middle, and on the side, and I'll put my 2x4s in, or 2x6s, or whatever you're using, and I'll just get 10 footers, and the 10 footers will come out to be a 20-foot ramp. Okay, that's a no-no. What happened was, in that long distance, before I even got the finished building the ramp, the boards had bowed down. It had a curve to them. And that's really bad. First of all, that's going to affect the coping reveal, and it did. I had parts on that ramp where the coping stuck out a lot, parts on that ramp where it didn't, and we skated all the time, and like Chris would have like certain spots where he did certain tricks because of the way the coping stuck out in that spot. So he had like his spots. And also, because of that dip in the support structure for the actual skate surface, it affects the curve of the ramp, the tranny, right? The tranny is like different. You have different tranny in different spots. So like we would have like different spots on the ramp for different tricks. When you're skating, especially if you want to have much flow to what you're doing and have fun, like then the ramp has to have a really consistent to it. So like it needs to be flat this way. This way needs to not deviate. It needs to be just whatever curve you want it to have, it needs to maintain that everywhere across. And the coping reveal has to be maintained. And so this is how I solve that problem. And this is my little thing. Okay. And what you can see I did was I built the thing in sections where it was 4 feet. So there's a plywood template curve every 4 feet. Now, most people make the plywood template so that it's just one big sheet of wood that comes down to the ground. I cut these like banana templates so that I could get like all of them out of like 1 sheet or 2 sheets of 5/8 inch wood. And then I built it in sections on the ground and made sure they were all the same. And then you just stand them up and screw them together. So like at the joints, there's 2 layers of 5/8 inch thick wood screwed together, you see. And so what that does is it helps. It makes the thing beefier and stronger. And now I would build them separately, like little quarter pipes, each with a leg on each side, and then knowing that the height to the ground was exactly the same for all of them. And then I just screw them together, and so I get these double 2x4 legs everywhere. And there's bracing going in there, and I put a brace in right there, a little leg brace, and just a brace to keep these from kicking out. I probably should put something in this way to keep them from swinging, but it's been years and it hasn't been a problem. And then on the end, you just have one template because there's no other section to screw on, but that's fine. And so what this does is it eliminates the possibility, you know, even if you buy long boards, cut them up and do them like this, because everything will stay straight across there, and you have the ability to maintain that straightness, because you're not going to have bow and weirdness if you do them on these 4-foot sections. So that's what I recommend. I know the standard that people recommend is 8-foot sections. I prefer to do it like this. And I partly invented this because I was building a ramp somewhere where I wasn't supposed to be building one, and I could carry these 4-foot sections up there real fast and screw them together and get the thing built real fast. But it creates a really, really straight ramp. And then you screw on the, you know, the deck frame like we talked about before, and then I've screwed on like a little ledger board to help hold that straight. And what that does is everything across here stays super straight, not just across the deck, which is essential. You don't want your deck going, you know, doing up and down this. You need your grinds to be locked in. Wherever you hit that coping, it needs to be the same, because you get a feel for it. You get it. It helps you learn tricks when it's the same. So the only thing that's varying is what you're doing on your board, and then the training needs to be the same. So if you're looking to build a ramp, that is my advice to you after building. I don't know. Let's see. My first quarter pipe was like, I was a teenager, spring 97, spring break 97. I think it's about spring break time right now. I don't get spring break anymore, but I used to. And we built my first quarter pipe. In fact, for me, I was always interested in building stuff, you know, but the thing that really motivated me to like get out there and really do stuff and like learn things, I never learned to drill a hole in a piece of pipe, or screw with a drill, or, you know, cut a curve in wood, and like a lot of the stuff that I've learned that motivated me to, you know, not just think about it or just pay attention to it. I mean, I always thought about it, and I would like do stuff with my dad, but I didn't really take it on as my own, like really want to do things and like have that inner need, like I want to do this. So like my construction desires come from like skateboarding, and like there just being nothing to skate and wanting there to be stuff to skate, and like having to build it. And so my first quarter pipe was built in 1997, and I did it all wrong. I had the radius of the curve of the ramp at 6 feet because I thought, you know, that'll give me vert, because I thought I was going to ride vert. Okay, no, I'm not riding vert, dude. Like if you're riding vert, you're a gnarly dude. Okay, standard for ramps. For the curve of the radius, when you cut the, like here's the old one, the template curve. This was a different ramp, not built by me, but 7.5 foot radius. That is your standard. Unless it's a really, really, really tall ramp, like a straight up vert ramp, it'll just have a more mellow radius. Or if you want to make this wacky, weird ramp, you'll make a smaller radius. But if you're just making a ramp and you want normal, 7.5 foot. Okay. Now, the other thing I did was I wanted the thing 6 feet tall when I built that first ramp, whereas you really don't want that. Like you probably want a 4 foot. Like I don't know how many people I told them, like, you want to come skate my ramp, and they don't skate but they want to learn, and I tell them it's 4 foot and they think, oh, that's all, and then they get up here and they're like terrified of like just, you know, doing anything on it. This 4 foot's actually not that. It's actually kind of tall to be skating down. If people think it isn't. You don't want to build anything under 3 foot. Like, don't think that like under 3 foot is beginner. If the ramp has a curve to it, under 3 foot is a joke. Like it needs to be 3 foot or taller. If you are a super beginner, then you just want a ramp with no curve to it. Like when you come to a skate park and you're like, oh, I'm a beginner, you want to mess with ramps that are what's called banks or wedges that don't have tranny. In other words, the slope of the ramp does not change along the distance of the ramp. It's just flat. And you just hit a bump at the bottom or a little bit of tranny at the bottom, little tiny little curve, and then it's consistent all the way across, because as a beginner, that's really what you need to get your balance figured out. You don't need a ramp that's constantly changing how you balance the whole. Never, ever, ever build a quarter like under 3 feet thinking that's beginner. Like that, no, okay? All right, and then make them wide. The wider the better. Like don't think tall, like it's tall thing. It's like my first ramp was 8 feet wide and 6 feet tall with a super tight tranny so I could have a vert. Dome, okay? You need it wider, okay? Lower, so you can get those nasty grinds and flow across it. You know, and then as you progress and push up, you do build extensions, or you know, you might make some really tall stuff like over there. You know, if that's what you want to mess with. But like, anyway, I've talked long enough. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope your coping comes out perfect and you have the best grinds ever. Thanks and goodbye.